Hello and welcome to our virtual broadcast of Facility Response Team presented by Jamie Harrison. Jamie Harrison is the Emergency Program Drill and Exercise Program Manager at Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory. Where she has worked since 2014. She has 13 years experience in emergency management, where she served in many capacities at DOE sites. If you have questions during the session, you can click on the chat tool on the right, type in your questions, and I will relay these to our presenters during our Q&A session at the end. Jamie has invited John Riley to join her for this Q&A session. So please join me in welcoming Jamie Harrison to the virtual stage.
Welcome, everyone. My name is Jamie Harrison. Thank you for joining me today for Lawrence Livermore National Laboratory's presentation on facility emergency response teams at our Superblock facilities. So our Superblock facilities are comprised of 4 Cat 2 and 3 nuclear facilities. As you can see there, it's the radiography, tritium, plutonium, and hardened engineering test facilities. EPHA covers those 4 different facilities. 3 of them are inside the fence, and 1 is outside the fence. The radiography facility is the one that's outside the fence, but it doesn't always have material in it, so it's only hazardous when it is occupied. Our tritium facility, we have a pretty high administrative limit, but we typically have less tritium in it than that. It does have the ability to have a criticality in it, as does the plutonium facility. The plutonium facility and the hardened engineering test facility are the ones that have a threshold for early lethality. The tritium, plutonium, and hardened engineering facilities have their assembly points inside the security fence. The primary control room, that room monitors rad, continuous air monitors, radiation readings, spikes, etc. This control room calls weather information into the facility manager. That facility manager then turns around and calls it into the fire department's battalion chief, giving them safe route information to the Superblock, and helps them decide the location of the incident command posts. We do have 2 100-foot stacks. They're for tritium. Releases go over people in the facility unless the stacks collapse. One criticality muster point has lanes for criticality. They line up in the lanes to keep everyone orderly. The folks that were in the RMA actually crash out the north door and come around the other side. They're roped off away from everyone, and health physicists are sent over to start checking their TLD badges. And the 9 EALs. Superblock has a total of 9 EALs, 9 different events that could happen, the highest being a site area emergency. This is just a map that shows the PAC2 rings for each of our EPHA areas on site. As you can see, if you look closely, we are in a densely populated city with residential homes directly across the street from us on the west side. We do have buildings with the potential for AGE. This is a picture that we took of the Superblock muster point, performing accountability for people that were not in the RMA. You can kind of see the lanes there that we were talking about. To the right of them, about 15 to 20 yards away, is the area for people that were in the RMA. They would come out in their Tyvek suits and they would be treated separately. The incident command post would be set up. You can kind of see the tree on the left-hand side. That's most likely where they would set up, depending on wind, if it's safe to do so. So the facility response team, this next couple of slides talks about how the response would work for an event at the Superblock. The Superblock is called Zone 8 because they have their own separate accountability system. The Zone 8 leader is one of the facility managers who works with the battalion chief. They're supposed to call them immediately and tell the IC where they recommend they set up the command post based on the wind directions at the Superblock. If the fire department doesn't hear from the Superblock by the time they pull the run cards and are ready to roll, then they'll start heading there anyways and just set up upwind wherever they feel is best. The facility manager is responsible for making sure that the protective actions being taken are appropriate until the incident commander arrives and takes responsibility for the area. So the facility manager is kind of in charge there for the short while. The facility manager gives initial protective actions to facility occupants. They can direct them to move upwind or go wherever. They always stay within the fence, but will move within the fenced area depending on wind direction. Facility responders include assembly point leader, deputy assembly point leader, operators that do sweeps to gather accountability information, criticality experts, ES&H techs who will check dosimetry as well as making loops around the facility to check for radiation readings at exterior doors, etc. The ES&H techs will go in with the fire department to check the high rad monitors in the hallways. And the assembly point leaders are highly trained people from the facility with a really good understanding of how the Superblock works. They're the ones who find the story of what happened by interviewing everybody at the assembly point and piecing the picture together of what happened. So there will be a criticality safety engineer that will be with the facility manager and the battalion chief. They'll be anxious to get the story about what happened so they can determine if reentry is safe. So they'll be out there gathering information. They do have a secure room that they can talk about the who, what, when, where, and why of the event. We up in the EOC can actually request one of these crit engineers to come to the EOC and kind of interpret this information for us. A lot of the folks up in the EOC don't understand the detail that happens in these criticality facilities. Let's see, we already talked a bit about the ops personnel. Facility communicator, that person will get on the phone to the assembly point and relay the information to the EOC. They're not crit engineers, they're just the go-between. And then for disasters, we have the zone control point leader relay accountability information to the EOC, which is what the whole rest of the lab does during any disaster. So Superblock has their own very complicated operator certification and qualifications training matrix. They have a lot of operator drills to satisfy all of the special operator qualifications. There can be dozens of these. The annual criticality exercise is where most of these special positions get qualified, such as facility managers, assembly point leaders, crit engineers, etc. Separate from the crit exercise, we have to rotate the protective action drill among the Superblock facilities so that we don't do a specific building every year. On the 1 out of the 4 years that a certain building participates in the annual exercise, we can take credit for the crit drill and the protective action drill at the same time, but that only happens once out of every 4 years. So the interface with the site emergency program, we receive the ops drill schedule for the year from our point of contact in the Superblock, and we assist with reviewing things beforehand if needed. They're usually such small drills that there's not a whole lot of involvement from emergency programs. The Superblock just kind of handles it on their own with a little bit of oversight from us. They schedule the criticality exercise every year and ask for support. We review their package, but they run the whole show, including the hot wash, and just provide us with the report afterwards so we can review it and provide feedback. As far as the protective action drills, we in emergency programs run those. We coordinate the controllers, etc., and our point of contact in the Superblock helps us out greatly with that. And then the last bullet there, we make sure to stay in good communication, relaying any 151.1D guidance or changes to them. Okay, Superblock Challenges, Part 1. We've already discussed, but there have been instances where the fire department did not receive MET data from the Superblock within the first couple of minutes. So they went ahead and rolled and ends up choosing a location, obviously upwind, on their own. And because of EA33, this is a new thing that we're going to be working on with them, is to move the incident command post outside the facility for 2 of their events out of the 9 EALs. So 2 of the run cards will say the command post needs to be set up outside the TEL ring upwind in case the wind switches. Second part of our challenges is a medical response to high radiation doses. Our fire department is county. They're not lab employees. We could easily end up having fire personnel that have never even been to our lab before and are completely unfamiliar with criticality injuries. That's where we rely heavily on Superblock facility staff, making sure that the fire department immediately transports all high rad exposure cases, even when they're not showing any symptoms. And I believe this is the last slide. Part 3 of our challenges are the new requirements for the defense nuclear facility integration with the EOC. So that first one there, elements of the EOC staff for operational emergencies. I think we're already doing scenarios that are representing all the different hazards and threats. We're constantly changing the scenario in the facility. However, number 3 there, annual drills initiating with conduct of ops drills. We have not been doing that. It's a new thing. We need to start it out with an ops drill that then escalates. And then that last one, number 5, we in the EPO don't currently have a plan to do this, but Superblock knows this is a requirement, and we're going to leave it to them to coordinate the rotation of shifts, unannounced drills, and drills during low staffing. And that's it. I believe we're moving on to the Q&A section.
Jamie, thank you for that great presentation. I'm not seeing any questions, but they were probably so engaged they didn't write down their questions. So let's open it up now. If you have anything for Jamie or John, glad to pass that on to them. Very quiet group here. We have about 30 people on this, so they're waiting for some really good questions for you. John or Jamie, did you have anything you'd like to add to the presentation? Oh, here's one. Hang on a moment. Deborah Gentile. Are drills exercises suspended? And if so, are you still conducting the annual crit exercise? Jamie or John, can you answer that?
Well, this year's crit exercise got canceled. The jury's still out on whether or not we'll have to do one next year. They do have a very robust schedule of operational drills that they have to conduct, and those have been suspended temporarily. So jury's still out on whether we'll be doing operational drills next year.
Thank you. Are there others? Well, if not, I'm going to close this session. I would like to remind everyone that you are welcome to submit your questions through an email. Jamie and John's emails can be found under the speaker tab in Attendify. And I hope you'll join us this evening for our social hour. Make sure you complete the survey. You're going to find that just below the description of the virtual meeting today. And this is our last session for this channel. We hope you'll join us back on Monday. Can you believe we're through 4 days of the UMI SIG? But we look forward to seeing you. There are a few other items on the agenda, so take a look and we'll talk to you soon. Again, many thanks to Jamie and John for their time.